Masao Takashimaya's family had searched for 5 years for a suitable bride for him ever since his 21st birthday. But in spite of all their efforts to find a young woman who suited him, he rejected each of the girls as soon as he met them. He wanted a very special girl, a young woman who would not only serve and respect him as the go-between promised each would, but he also wanted a woman he could talk to, someone who would not only listen to him and obey, but a girl he could share his ideas with. And none of the girls he had seen in the past 5 years had even come close to fulfilling his wishes. Until Hidemi. She was only 19 when they met, and she lived in a buraku, a tiny farming village near Ayabe. She was a pretty girl, delicate and small, and exquisitely gentle. Her face looked as though it were carved of the finest ivory. Her dark eyes were like shining onyx, and she scarcely spoke to Masao the first time she met him. At first Masao thought she was too shy, too afraid of him. She was just like the others that had been pressed on him before her. They were all too old-fashioned, he complained. He didn't want a wife to follow him like a dog and look at him in terror. Yet the women he met at the University of Kyoto didn't appeal to him either. There were certainly very few of them. In 1920 he'd been teaching there for 2 years, and the women he met were either the other professors' daughters or wives, or foreigners. But most of them lacked the total purity and sweetness of a girl like Hidemi. Masao wanted everything in a wife, ancient traditions mixed with dreams of the future. He didn't expect her to know many things, but he wanted her to have the same hunger for learning that he did. And at 26, he had found her. She was perfect. She was delicate and shy, and yet she was fascinated by the things he said, and several times, through the go-between, she had asked him interesting questions about his work, his family, and even about Kyoto. She rarely raised her eyes to look at him, and yet once he had seen her glance at him with excruciating shyness, and he thought her incredibly lovely. She stood beside him now, 6 months after the day they met, with her eyes cast down, wearing the heavy white kimono her grandmother had worn with the same elaborate gold brocade obi, and a tiny dagger hung from it so she could take her own life should Masao decide that he did not want her. And on her carefully groomed hair she wore the tsunokakushi, which covered her head but not her face, and made her seem even tinier as he watched her. Carefully they each took 3 sips of sake from 3 cups, and the Shinto ceremony continued. They had been to the Shinto shrine earlier that day for a private ceremony, and this one was the formal public marriage that would join them forever in front of both their families and all their friends. Only Masao's cousin Takeo was not there. He was 5 years older than Masao and was his closest friend, and he would have wanted to be there. But Takeo had gone to the United States the year before to teach at Stanford University in California. It was a great opportunity for him, and Masao wished he could have joined him. The ceremony was extremely solemn and very long, and never once did Hidemi raise her eyes to look at him or even smile, as they became man and wife according to the most venerable Shinto traditions. And after the ceremony, at last, she hesitantly looked up at him, and the smallest of smiles lit her eyes and then her face as she bowed low to her new husband. Masao bowed to her as well, and then she was led away by her mother and her sisters to exchange her white kimono for a red one for the reception. It was a perfect day for them. There was music and many friends and dozens of distant relatives. Hidemi's cousin from Fukuoka played the koto, and a pair of dancers performed a slow and graceful bukaku. There was endless food as well. Hidemi's grandmother had overseen all the preparations herself. She was pleased that her little granddaughter was getting married. She was the right age, and she had learned her lessons well. She would be a good wife for anyone, and the family was pleased with the alliance with Masao in spite of his reputation for being fascinated by modern concepts. Hidemi's father was amused by him. Masao liked to discuss world politics and speak of worldly things, but he was also well-versed in all the important traditions. It was a good family, and he was an honorable young man, and they all felt